Hey everyone, it's Andy here from Saving to Invest. And in today's video, I'm going to continue with our series of tax return and refund delays that many millions of taxpayers are facing. Specifically, I'm going to look at where you can go to your IRS tax transcript to see information about what's happening with your delayed processing or refund payment. I'm going to touch on amended returns, which are causing a lot of issues for people, where the IRS is taking several weeks more than normal to process these things. And finally, I'm going to look at some options and where you can get help if you've been waiting for a long time. As always, if you find this information useful, please hit the like button and keep subscribing to get more videos like this. So let's look at some statistics from the IRS on what's happening with the current tax season. So there's about 3.2 million individual tax returns that are unprocessed. This doesn't include business tax returns. Of these 3.2 million that are unprocessed, which is only about 2 or 3% of the total number of returns processed in a year, about 1.7 million require special or manual handling by an IRS agent to fix any errors. A lot of these can be handled automatically by the IRS and you're just sent a notice when these are fixed, but they still require a few extra steps that are not automated, like people who have normal returns that just go through without any issues. The other big bucket of returns being waited to be reviewed and processed are paper returns. These have to be loaded in, and a lot of times they have to be manually reviewed. That's why electronic filing is always the best option, because you can have errors in paper returns that just require more time. And then the other big bucket of unprocessed returns, which is not part of the standard 3.2 million, is the amended returns, the 1040Xs. About 900,000 of these are still unprocessed, and it is taking well more than 20 weeks for the IRS just to process this, and then they'll send notices if there's issues or discrepancies found. So those are the bucket that's taking a lot of time, and a lot of people are, especially towards the end of the year, get very frustrated with the amended returns. Overall, the IRS is saying the issues are taking more than 4 months to process. So even after they've processed your tax return, you see the completed status, it's just taking a long time. And there's two factors which drive this. One is how quickly and accurately you respond to their notices. So if they find they process it, they need more information, or they're trying to determine certain credits or deductions you've claimed, they'll send you a notice, you need to respond. And the other part is the IRS. How long are they taking to process your return? Because they have to go through their agents sometimes, they have to wait to get feedback, and just the lack of staffing, all systems, just everything gets delayed. So folks that are seeing their returns or refunds take several months, this is why. And you're probably caught in one of these buckets. Unfortunately, that is just going to take a while to process, even going into the next tax season. Now that you know there are delays and not much you can do about it, a lot of people ask, why is it delayed, or what's going on with my return? And you definitely should be checking your status of your normal return on the WMR, Where Is My Refund tool, or the IRS To Go app. For amended returns, there's a different tool, Where Is My Amended Return. So there are two different tools on the irs.gov website. So check there first, and you can always see that. But another useful place to go is to check your IRS tax transcript. This is free from your IRS account, and I definitely recommend everyone to have an IRS account now. A lot of stuff can be available online. It's safe. You have to verify your identity when you create the account, and there's all the multi-factor authentication to log in. But it's really useful to get your transcript and other notices from the IRS, which can be very useful in figuring out what's happening with your return. I'm just going to cover a few places here on your transcript that will give you some ideas, some codes, because IRS is all based on mainframe batch processing systems, and everything is based on a transcript code around the processing. I have a whole bunch of videos. Go check those out. I'll put some links up here. You can see them. But it gives you a lot of information, what's happening or what's happened to past tax returns, and it can sometimes help you figure out when you're getting your payment. So just here are some of the common codes. There's hundreds of codes, but I'm just going to touch on some of the most common that relate to refund delays or processing delays that may help you just see what's happening, right? So a lot of folks will see code 898, which is, when your debt, your refund is reduced due to a non-IRS debt. That normally comes from the Bureau of Financial Services, Fiscal Services. They tend to do this if you have child support or other past debt payments, other things which is non-IRS debt related. So for example, you can see here, someone's refund was reduced by $2,942 because they probably owed child support or they had some debts from other government agencies. And the IRS has the power to do this. They'll get notified by that agency, and then they can use the refund. So a lot of people may see lower refunds, and this can delay things at times as well, because if this have to be verified, people can test this deduction. It can add a bit of time to your refund payment. The other one is code 570. This is very common during the tax season and for processing. It just means IRS has processed your return through the automated systems, and now there's some additional account pending. A lot of this can happen sometimes due to additional verification of the earned income credit or the child tax credit, like you can see here. Those are codes 766 and 768, and it can delay things, right? It doesn't mean that your refund is reduced or there's something going on. It just could mean that there's additional information the IRS needs to process. They may also send you a notice, which is code 971, which I'll talk about a bit later. But it just means there's something more happening. But this is something that could be delaying your refund payment. The other one, which is probably a little bit more likely to result in delays, is tax code code 420. And so this basically means that your return has been flagged for an audit. Now, I've got a whole video on IRS audits, but there's different levels of IRS audit. And some could just be a simple, hey, this payment doesn't make sense. Can you send us information proving it? Or there's a full-blown audit where they want to go and check, hey, why did you claim all these things? So if this happens, there's likely going to be a freeze on your refund payment, which is code 810. But then there's also going to be a longer delay to your tax return. Now, the delay could be a week or it could be several weeks, depending on how detailed the audit is and how good your response to the IRS is as well. And when this happens, your refund could be frozen and you'll see code 810. Now, your refund freeze can happen because of additional IRS processing. There could be some other reasons that cause it as well, that the IRS, especially with amended returns or someone else has claimed you're dependent. But there's different reasons where your refund can be frozen by the IRS. So they've done your processing, but for some other reason, your refund freeze. And you'll get a notice explaining why your freeze has happened. And you'll see this is code 810 on your tax transcript. Then the best code you want to see on your transcript is 846, which is refund issued. Now, this code can come up every year, and there could be multiple versions because if you submit an amended return or your tax return, was released part of it. So you could see code 846, but code 846 is really the one. Even if WMR or your WMAR status tracking tool shows that your processing is complete, you really want to check your transcript to see that 846 is there because that means a refund has been issued and the payment will be sent. Now, the payment could take a few days if it's direct debit. It could take a few weeks if it's check for an amended return just because it may have to do a few more steps. But it does mean the IRS is finished and it's just about making payment. So this is a really good code you want to see on your transcript, and this really signifies the end of a processing cycle. And then code 971 is sort of a catch-all for notice issued. Now, some of these notices are sent to the taxpayer. Some of them are just notices that are internal that you can see on your account, but definitely do not ignore IRS notices. And code 9771 can just be indicated that it's been sent. It's waiting for you to respond. Now, notice can take a few days to be issued by the IRS, so it could take a few more days to be mailed to you. So it could take some time and it could delay a refund, but this is what 971 means as well. And I'll post a link here to another article I've written on a bunch of different codes you may see on your tax transcript. But I always think the transcript is a great place to get additional information. The IRS status tools are obviously probably the most up to date, but this gives you a lot of good background information, especially when it comes to delays or if you've been waiting for a long time. So now you know that there have been delays and what could be some of the reasons behind the delays. The last part is how to get help. And so here are sort of three main ways to get help. And I think these are the sort of the ones you'd follow and that a lot of people are following. It does eventually get progress, even though it can be slow right now. So like I said before, check your IRS account, which contains your tax transcript. Definitely call the IRS and respond to notices. So this is probably the most basic thing. Everyone should be doing this. If you get stuck, if it's been more than 21 days or several weeks, call the IRS. I know it can take a while, and I've posted a bunch of videos around how best to get through this, some tips and tricks, but call them first. But also importantly, respond to notices. The IRS will send you a letter or a notice, as they call it, for all information they need from you once you've submitted a tax return. Obviously, be careful of scams and calls, but wait for the official IRS notice, check your account, check your transcript. That'll give you more details, and that's always helpful. You can also sometimes call tax help agencies if you want, but I would say this is the one you should do as well. Then, if it's been a while, especially if you're facing financial hardship, contact the Taxpayer Advocate Service. Now, the taxpayer is technically part of the IRS, but they do operate separately. And if your return has been submitted and processed by the IRS, that's important because it has to be loaded into their master file. Then the Taxpayer Advocate Service can help you. You go to their website, there's a Form 911, a good name for it, to get assistance. Now, I will say, just given the volume of delayed returns and people needing help, they have a backlog for the Taxpayer Advocate Service, and they'll prioritize it based on financial hardship or hardships you're experiencing because of getting a delayed tax return. So when you submit your claim, they'll make that assessment, they'll call you, they'll decide. But this is sort of two official channels you can go through. And then finally, once you've exhausted contacting the IRS, the Taxpayer Advocate, potentially some private tax relief agencies, contact your local congressman or representative. So these are folks that you've elected, and they can actually help you, whether it's state, federal, taxes. And for the IRS, I would definitely contact your congressman because they tend to have more contacts. Google search, your zip code, congressman, and I'll post an article on detailed steps around this, but contact them and they can generally help push it through. They'll probably ask you to submit a form with some information, get your authorization for them to contact the IRS on your behalf, but they can definitely help because they deal a lot more with this. They have some contacts within the IRS relationships office. So definitely use them. And I have found that some people, if they've been waiting for several weeks or months, that their congressman can help push through their tax return, or at least get an update on what's happening with it and potentially expedite the refund payment. So these three methods there as well. Of course, you can check out online sites like this one. I always say, be careful what you read online, you get what you pay for. So don't always just rely on that. Find from multiple sources and then contact these different channels to see if you can get help with your tax return. So if this was helpful for you, please hit the like button. And like I said, please subscribing to get more videos like this. And if you leave a comment below, I can try and help answer any general questions. And like I said, I'll post lots of links and descriptions in below the video so you can find more information. Thanks. Goodbye.